As part of my ongoing series dealing with AI literacy, I wanted to highlight this paper that came from Google recently talking about prompt engineering. And as you remember here, prompt engineering, this falls within capability as far as overall AI literacy. This is an important aspect of our capability, not just the capabilities of the different AIs, but our capability in being able to create the best prompt possible to get what we want from the AI, to get the most effective response. Now, I want to start off by saying, please don't be scared of that term, prompt engineering, because you don't need to be an engineer and you don't need to be a computer scientist or data scientist in order to be a good prompt engineer. What it does take is for us to think about the way that we're going to formulate this question or the statement to the AI. So that's what this white paper is all about. And that's what prompt engineering is all about. So as I go through this paper, I'm going to be talking about its different aspects and then how we can apply that for education, for business, for anything. Because whenever you're interacting with the AI, you want to have a good prompt in order to get the best response possible from it. This white paper, simply titled Prompt Engineering, comes to us from Lee Boonstra. This individual is a software engineer and advocate for the Office of the CTO, which is Google Cloud's two-way innovation street. The white paper also acknowledges contributions from a multiple of other individuals that also work at Google. So this is something, this product directly comes to us from Google. I want to start off by just giving their definition of what we mean when we say prompt engineering. It says that prompt engineering is a process of designing high quality prompts that guide the LLMs, the large language models, to produce accurate outputs. In the context of natural language processing and LLMs, a prompt is an input provided to the model to generate a response or prediction. So yes, we were wanting to have the AI generate a response for us, right? So in order to do that, in order for it to give us the best response, we have to formulate the question in the best way. That's what prompt engineering is in a nutshell, basically. And the way that I want you to think about this is basically like you're going up to a subject matter expert. Let's say you're at some conference or something and you see someone, oh, I know that person, subject matter expert in this field. I want to ask them a question. So as I go up to them, I need to think about how to properly formulate that question. And this is the problem that a lot of people have, in that they assume that this subject matter expert would already know a bunch of things that they have in their head. But of course, it doesn't work that way, right? The AI or the subject matter expert isn't a mind reader. So we have to make sure that we're properly expressing the full question with all the different aspects needed in order to get the very best response, so that we don't have to go back and forth a multiple of times, although that is a product or that is an aspect of this conversation. That's the other big thing for you to think about, is that when we're working with the AI, it is a conversation, and that we can go back and forth as many times as needed. The idea with having a better prompt is that you can minimize the amount of times that you have to go back and forth in order to get the response that you're really after. So the beginning of the paper talks about some aspects of output length and configuration aspects. Output length is becoming less and less of an issue because the context window is growing as far as how much information you can put into the AI and how much it can give out to you. Other aspects such as temperature, top K, top P, these are some specific aspects of the way that you want the AI to give you the response, whether you want it to be more creative or less creative, whether you want it to be more succinct or open to a bunch of different things. Now, the thing with this is that you can't really manipulate the temperature or those types of variables, because that deals specifically with going directly into the API, right? So that's like tying directly into the server's aspects and things like that. So I'm not going to cover that because that's a bit more advanced and that's not the focus of what I'm trying to do here. Now, you can affect some of these things if you make a direct statement, as far as telling within your prompt, you're telling the AI directly that, hey, I want this to be less creative. I want it to be more direct and more logical, so less open to what you might give me and more exact with the specifics of what you're going for. So this totally depends on what type of question you're asking, what type of responses you're looking for. If you're asking it to write some sort of creative story or come up with some sort of creative answer then you wouldn't want to put that type of restriction on it. But perhaps you are looking for some sort of succinct answer. So then you could do something like that by sort of blocking it in and saying, don't use creativity, be more succinct in your answer. So then it goes into the different prompting techniques. So these are different aspects of how you put together your prompt and ask questions or give commands, directions to the AI. So the first one is zero shot. This is where we simply directly ask a question, and it can be a very simple question like write an essay dealing with democracy in the United States after the Civil War. That would be very direct, and that would be zero shot. Now we can also, in contrast to that, do a few shot, meaning that we give some examples of what we want. So in this case, you could give them an example of an essay and say, write an essay similar to this, or you could give it an example of your own writing and say, I want you to write it in this style. So now I'm providing additional information to to the AI as part of my prompt. So I can upload this content. I don't necessarily have to put it within the prompt. Why? Because now we have multimodal types of AIs, and the AIs can also accept an upload. So that could be an aspect of your prompt saying, I'm going to provide you with this attachment, and I want you to write an essay about this, but using this type of writing style or using examples from this content. So it can function as a reference, it can function as an example. So that's what we talk about when we're talking about few shot or multiple shot prompts. Then it goes in and it starts talking about contextual and roles for prompting. This is the most important part as far as I see it, because this correlates very well with what I've always been pushing when we're talking about prompt engineering. In that when you're using a good prompt, you're also incorporating a good advanced prompt formula. I've done specific videos about this in the past because I think that this is the very best way to create your best overall prompt is by having a formula where you can be sure that you're hitting these important aspects in order to create the best prompt overall to get the best response from the AI. So I'll quickly go over that here. The first part of a good advanced prompt formula is the task. So this means what is it that you want the AI to actually do? Do you want it to create an essay? Do you want it to simply answer a question? Do you want it to create some sort of other type of content for you? You should be very specific and make that statement as to what exactly you want. The instructions. Here you need to be very specific to give the information in order to best complete that task. In the same way, if I'm asking a question of someone, I want to give them some specifics so that they understand as opposed to simply just talking in generalities. The more specific, the better. Context. This is what viewpoint or role you want the AI to actually take. So this means assuming a certain role. I want you to be a subject matter expert in this. I want you to be a university professor in this. I want you to assume the role of a governor. I want you to assume the role of a marketing specialist at Google. You can be as specific, once again, as possible in order to help the AI assume the best role to give you that best response from that perspective. Reasons. This is another powerful aspect of the overall advanced prompt formula because now this really helps to give some background as to what it is that you're looking for. So with reasons, we're providing the why for the reference and for understanding. So this gives the AI a better viewpoint as to where you're coming from as to the purpose of what you're wanting. Again, by providing these types of reasons, that really helps with the overall comprehension and then being able to put together the best response possible. And then clarification. This is something that you can add by letting the AI ask questions if needed. So you could put in a simple thing of, do you need any additional information in order to answer my question? So that's another big one. And then refinement. This is an understanding that there could be ongoing conversation back and forth. So when you use AI, it is a conversation. You can go back and forth as many times as needed because it's a conversation. So that means that if it gives me a result, I don't have to just wait on it and say, oh, well, that's it. That's the only result it gives me. It doesn't understand anything or I don't like it. So that's it. I'm done. No, I can say, no, give me more of an answer. Give me a different answer. Give me more specifics. I can go back to the AI and continue this conversation to get exactly what I want. So this is multiple interactions as if I'm having a conversation to get the specific response, the specific answer, the specific product that I'm looking for from the AI. Here's an example. I could go to an AI such as ChatGPT or whichever one you're more comfortable with. And I could say something like, please help me prepare for a job interview for the position of director of a university's Center for Teaching and Learning. Ask me 5 questions, one at a time, and let me respond before moving on to the next question. Assume the role of a hiring manager for a university. I want to practice and sharpen my responses dealing with different aspects of pedagogical topics and helping professionally develop faculty. Do you need anything else to properly facilitate this? Now, notice here within this prompt that I'm addressing the different aspects of my advanced prompt formula. When I put in the task, right, the task is that very first line. I say, please help me prepare for a job interview for the position of a director of a university's Center for Teaching and Learning. So that's the task that I'm asking it to help me prepare for this interview. The next aspect of my advanced prompt formula is instruction, specific information to best complete the task. So even within that first sentence, I gave it some specific aspects, right? In that I told it already that, hey, I'm preparing for this job. It is for the position of a director of a university center for teaching and learning. But within the rest of it, I also give some other specific details. I say things like, ask me 5 questions, one at a time. Let me respond before moving on to the next question. So some very good specific instructions there. The context, meaning the viewpoint that I wanted to take. I tell it directly, assume the role of a hiring manager for a university. So that's the perspective that it's taking. So it's going to pretend it to be that hiring manager for a university. And then the reasons here. I'm saying, hey, I want to practice and sharpen my responses dealing with different aspects of pedagogical topics. So I'm being very specific. And I also say that I want to help professionally develop faculty. So it understands and it has the information that it needs, but I'm also doing the last part here and I'm saying clarification. I pose this question, do you need anything else to properly facilitate this? And you can see the response here. It says it actually responds to that question. It says, that sounds like a great plan. Thanks for the context. So it's appreciating that I gave it that. This is enough for us to begin. I'll play the role of a hiring manager at a university and focus the questions on leadership in teaching and learning, faculty development, instructional design, and strategic vision. Great. And then it directly goes in and gives me the very first question. It says, as director of the Center for Teaching and Learning, how would you assess the current instructional needs of faculty across different disciplines? And how would you prioritize which professional development initiatives to launch first? It starts off by asking me this very great question that's totally appropriate for what I asked it for. Remember, I'm trying to practice for this job interview, so I needed to ask me the question, but not give me the answer. So because I was very specific of that within the actual prompt, now it's addressing that and it's abiding by those rules because I was specific enough. I gave it the context, I gave it the instructions, and I was specific. So now it gives me this great question that I can then go through and answer. And then it will keep going because that's part of the instructions as well. And it's nicely here, it says, when you're ready, go ahead and respond, and I'll follow up with question 2 based on your answer. So in this case, I would answer with something like, great question. I would do multiple things, such as create a short survey to get general responses directly from faculty. I would also privately talk with deans and program chairs to see what are the needs that should be addressed along with priorities. I would also talk with the provost so that we can put together an overall priorities list for the university. And this is really nice in that it gives me a bit of a response. It says, thank you. That's a thoughtful and collaborative approach. Balancing faculty voice and institutional priorities is key, and your method shows leadership and strategic alignment. So that's nice in that it already is giving me a little bit of feedback. Now I could have put in within that prompt, I could have been more specific and said that, hey, yeah, give me a lot of feedback after every single question. I can do that. I could modify it that way. I could ask for additional feedback at the very end of all this. Why? Because it's a conversation. So remember that we can continue to talk back and forth. So this is also really nice because if you look at the response here, it gives me that little bit of feedback and then it goes through and gives me another question. So now I can go back and forth with it because I asked it to pretend that this is a real life situation and that it's like I'm being interviewed. Now that is one technique in that I am interacting with it via giving it my prompt and then I'm answering these questions, I'm typing it in. Great, that works really well. That helps me a bit more to prepare, but that's more of a practice. If we want to rehearse, which is a little bit different than practice in this situation, well, then I could also use a good prompt, but I could do it through the voice mode because prompting can also be done via voice. Now I could say that exact same prompt, I could use that same prompt and give it to the AI via voice, and now our interactions would be conducted via voice. So this would be even more of a powerful way for this specific prompt, because what is the purpose of my prompt here is that I want to practice this this whole process. I want to rehearse going through so that I can be more ready for my job interview, and having an emotional voice connection, that would be an even greater way of doing this. So again, you have to think about when you're prompting, there's different ways to prompting that you could use voice, you could use text, whatever would be most beneficial for you, for your situation. So that was really good in that that is something that is addressed here within this white paper, and it correlates exactly like what I've been expressing with prior videos dealing with this topic. I also really appreciated this prompting technique where it talks about step back prompting. Here it says that this is a technique for improving the performance by prompting the LLM, the AI, to first consider a general question related to the specific task at hand, and then feeding the answer to that general question into a subsequent prompt for the specific task. This step back allows the LLM to activate relevant background knowledge and reasoning processes before attempting to solve the specific problem. This is also really good in that this can help to minimize biases that might exist within the LLM, the AI. So this could take several different forms in that when I pose a question or when I pose it a task to the I could tell it to consider certain things like, hey, there might be this underrepresented group, so make sure that you consider this when you answer my question. So if I'm talking about higher education, I might say, hey, consider Latinos in your answer because that's kind of an underrepresented group. So by being specific in that way, and I can do that in several different ways. I can be that direct and just say that, or I can say, consider this population and also read this document, and then I could upload another reference. I could upload something that it will take whatever it's been pre-trained on, it'll take that into account in the answer, but then it'll also consider this information that I'm directly giving it. So that's a great way to put information together so that you can get, once again, the overall best response possible. Another great technique, and something that I have mentioned a couple of times, is dealing with chain of thought. This is interesting on several different levels because the question or the example that they give here is this prompt. When I was 3 years old, my partner was 3 times my age. Now I am 20 years old. How old is my partner? And the output here is 63 years old. Of course, that's an incorrect answer. So what they would recommend is to say something like, when I was 3 years old, my partner was 3 times my age. Now I am 20 years old. How old is my partner? Let's think step by step. The idea with this is that by putting in that specific tag right there, that specific line of let's think step by step, this creates a different mechanism within the AI to stop as it's going through and consider different parts of its answer before it gives you a final answer. So this is chain of thought where it's considering different things. Now, this would have been very great information and a usable technique a little bit ago, maybe a few months ago, but now it's already sort of tied in with reasoning in itself. Most AIs now have deep research or reasoning capabilities, so this is already somewhat done. As an example, I ran this through a couple of different AIs just to show you what's already happening when you give it a prompt like that. So I simply gave that initial simple prompt of when I was 3 years old, my partner was 3 times older. Now I'm 20 years old. How old is my partner? And as you see the response here, it's actually thinking step by step. Even though I didn't tell it to, it already knows that it should. So it goes through and it goes step by step, and then it gives me the correct answer of 26 years old. So that was ChatGPT. Now when I take it to Gemini and I give it that exact same simple prompt, even without me telling it to think step by step, it does it. It thinks step by step and it presents its answer in 3 steps and gives me the correct answer of 26 years old. So that's another thing to consider, right? Is that when we're using this understanding of prompt engineering, the AI itself is trying to become smarter and smarter and have more reasoning capabilities. And in lots of different AIs, you have even buttons that will allow you to sort of switch the role a little bit of the AI to focus more on reasoning, and that can be done. So like with ChatGPT, you have a little reason button, so push that and it'll think through it even more than it already is. The white paper also describes another technique, which is called automatic prompt engineering, APE. Now, this is an interesting technique in that you actually use the AI to help you to create a better prompt. This can be done in a couple of different ways in that what you're doing is you're simply talking to the AI and asking it to help you in generating your prompt. As an example, I could say, help me put together a great prompt that would ask the AI to create a 7-question quiz on the book Animal Farm. It should have different types of questions, with the final one being a 1-paragraph answer for a reflective type question. I teach juniors in high school. So this is just an example. I actually teach at a university, but in this example, I am giving it enough information. So although I'm not directly using an advanced prompt formula, I'm still giving it enough information so that then it can put together something really good for me. So you can see the result here is that, yeah, this made it really much more effective in that it gives very specific information so that this creates a better prompt, so that now when I take this and feed it into the AI, it will give me much more information, more specific to what I'm actually looking for. And at the very least, this gives you a good starting point, because I can now go in and modify this so that it can give me exactly what I'm looking for. And you can see all the specifics here for the different types of questions, as well as the specific one that I asked for with a reflective paragraph question. So this is a great prompt that it was able to create. Now, don't over rely with this, in that you still should know and develop your understanding of an advanced prompt formula, just so that you can create the prompts and you can know what to look for when you have the AI help you like this. It's perfectly fine to do this. Just make sure that you are hitting all of the key aspects so that you can get the very best results. And remember, this is an ongoing conversation, so you can modify, you can adjust so that you get the best results overall. So lots of different ways, lots of different things to consider. The key thing is that by reading this white paper like prompt engineering from Google, and by going through videos like this, you're starting to understand a bit more about what's going on through the prompt process, so that you're that much more enlightened and capable of doing different types of prompts, and you can ask better questions. Now, no matter how good the AI gets, no matter how awesome its reasoning capabilities become, it's still important for us to think through and ask it the best question possible. Not just for the AI to give us the best response, but also for us to be thinking about what is it that we're really after. We need to be able to express that in a way that the AI can better understand. This deals with good professional communication, of enhanced interaction, and that's what we're after. So this is something that we should be teaching to our students in class, as well as something we're developing within ourselves, meaning that we are continuing to develop our understanding, our comprehension, our critical thinking, so that we can break these things down and be able to interact with AI regardless of its capabilities. The better it gets, still, we want to enhance our capabilities as well. So that means that we are understanding these things more and more. So improving our prompt capabilities will improve this overall. I definitely recommend this paper. It's good for you to look through. It's got some great information. I'll put a link in the description as well as in the comments. So I want you to go through it, and please check it out and tell me what you think. Do you think that it's a good resource? Are there other resources out there that would be beneficial for us as far as prompting is concerned? Please put that in your comments so that we can, again, learn from one another. Because this is something that we need to continually develop within ourselves, within our students, within our friends, everyone, so that we can better use these tools. Because so many times I've seen people that they tell me, oh, yeah, the AI wasn't helpful at all. And then I ask them, I'm like, oh, well, let me see what prompt you asked. And 9 times out of 10, they simply asked it a very simple prompt that wasn't enough context, wasn't enough information to really have the AI understand the question that they were even trying to ask in order to give them the best response possible. And that's what we're talking about. To increase our efficiency, to increase our effectiveness, it all ties together. So that's why it's important for us to develop this. But please remember, prompt engineering, being able to use the AI in this way, that is only one aspect of overall AI literacy. we still need to be sure that we're developing those other components, because that's important to have overall well-rounded understanding, capability, and then proper use of AI so that we can stay ethical, we can stay effective, we can avoid over-reliance, and we can be the best user of AI in the best way. And also we can help our students in the same thing as well. So please post your comments, share, subscribe so that we can continue to develop this channel. We can continue to learn from each other. And remember, learning is for life.